My name is David Kinnaman, and we just spent a great day here in Arlington talking about the next generation.
Important part of that story. This is the courage that they say, I'm not going to eat that diet. I'm not going to bow down before your idol. I'm not going to submit to this new legislation, even if it costs me or us our lives. The courage to be pure. The courage to be faithful. We can well imagine that a lot of the young men who were brought to captivity just accommodated, right? Sold out, were indistinguishable from the Babylonians after a period of time. But the second kind of courage is even more challenging for us to teach. It's the courage to be proximate. It's the courage to be close enough to culture to influence it. If these young men had given up their assignment, if you will, if they had said on the first day of the training, I cannot learn this, it is against my beliefs, you must put me in a private school. Listen, we send our 3 kids to Christian school. I'm not taking a swipe at private school, right? Like, you can read into my humor. I'm being provocative because I want you to think about it, right? Like, how are we helping to train young men and women to be part of this new culture? How will we do this? The courage to be proximate, it matters.
Hi, my name is Gary Blanchard. I'm the new Youth and Young Adult Director for the Texas Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. And I was really impressed by David's presentation. The part of the presentation that really spoke to me, there's actually a couple parts. First, when he talked about the importance of reverse mentoring, I thought that was awesome. Instead of us always trying to lead the kids and tell the kids where they need to go in life, instead, taking the time to find out and learn from them how to direct the church and learn from them through their culture how to reach the harvest. I thought that was impressive. I also had an awesome time listening to the interviews. And what really impressed me is how one girl actually left the faith after she saw that her pastor was not authentic, wasn't a real Christian. And I just really impressed me of the importance of being real around youth and young adults today, being a real Christian and letting it shine to others.
For me, this entire thing was wrapped up in the last statement that David Kinnaman made when he said, do we love our traditions more than our children? I was reminded of what Christ said, that we must have mercy rather than sacrifice. And for me, that impacted me deeply because I believe I allow my religion to become so much a part of my identity that anything that differs from what I think or I feel may seem as a threat to my very own personal well-being. For me, a takeaway, as I go back, I intend to share this with my entire church, with all the other members in the area who weren't able to make it here, and try to be very intentional about being inclusive of young people and not shun their ideas just because they differ to a degree from what we're used to.
You might have noticed that here in America, there's one group that's not nearly as involved or engaged in the church as other age groups, 18 to 29-year-olds. We call this generation the Mosaics, and for most churches, this is a demographic black hole. Just how big of a black hole? Get this, 59% of Mosaics with a Christian background drop out of church after attending regularly as a teenager. Now, on the surface, this doesn't seem like a new problem, and in some respects, it isn't. People in this age group have left the church in droves for decades. but historically, many come back. If you think that's going to happen with today's generation, think again. Today's young adults are very different from their counterparts of the past. A lot of them are rethinking the major things in life. Stuff like whether or not marriage is still necessary, or if the church really matters. What's strange is, the majority of these dropouts actually still consider themselves Christians. They're big fans of Jesus, just not the church. Every mosaic has their own unique reason for leaving the church, but ultimately, they all point their fingers at the Christian community, and what they're saying is, you lost me. Now, hold on. You lost me? Isn't that a little harsh? Well, maybe, but what a person really means when they say that to someone is, you're not making sense to me. Research from our team at Barna shows that millions of mosaics don't feel like they can ask their most pressing life questions in church. So it's no wonder they turn to technology, pop culture, and their peers for answers. With all of the resources on the internet, young people have access to answers to lots of things, important and trivial. And some of the answers seem to make sense. But just because something makes sense, it doesn't mean it's the truth. Naturally, all that conflicting information leads to more questions and more confusion. These wandering souls are viewing the world through a distorted lens. They need the wisdom of the church to help them see things through the lens of faith, but they can't even see that. What we need is real dialogue, and real answers to the questions that all too often just get swept under the rug. It means we stop ignoring the elephant in the room, roll up our sleeves, and seriously address the tough questions about science, sexuality, culture, and lifestyle. Let's be careful not to judge them too quickly, and give our young Christians the tools they need to cope with the modern world. We need to teach them to be discerning in today's culture, to be influential among their peers, as followers of Christ. Today's changing world is a tough place to live faithfully as a Christian at any age. But if we're gonna change the world together, we can't afford to let another young person say, "You lost me."
Hi, my name is Robert Jew and I work with Barna Group. One thing that really stuck out to me today at You Lost Me Live Dallas is just the general level of community and fellowship that the Seventh-day Adventist Church has. And something that this generation is really lacking is a sense of community with other believers. A lot of times we'll try to find places outside of church to find that. And today was an encouraging sign that that same kind of community that we're looking for can definitely still be found within the church walls, and that it's definitely still possible. So that definitely some really encouraging signs coming out of younger generation church and also the Seventh-day Adventist Church of Arlington.
The first journey is that of a spiritual nomad. And these are individuals who walk away from the church, and they call themselves Christians still. This is an important part, and this is the most common sort of faith journey that they take. They're lost to church. It's 4 in 10 young people that take this journey. Prodigals are people that literally walk away from their faith. They lose their faith. They say, I'm no longer a Christian. I was Southern Baptist once, but now I'm something else. These are individuals who would say, I'm an ex-Christian. About 1 in 10 fit that mold. And then about 3 in 10 or 2 in 10, depending on how you estimate it, of young people would say that they're exiles, lost between church and culture. These are individuals who feel like they're called into Hollywood. If we don't deal square in the face with the reasons why this generation is leaving in a more complicated world, then that is on us.
I think my aha moment was just to understand how much more openness we need to have between ourselves as Christian people and even as Christians interacting with the world around us. There's so much we can learn from each other from different perspectives, and if we think that our worldview is the end-all be-all picture of things, we're missing out on so much, and we lose a lot of people, we lose a lot of value for our own lives if we think we're the only ones that have something to teach. We need to learn from each other, we need to spend time with each other, we need to listen. And then I think the idea that we can encourage young people to have their identity as a professional and to have their identity as a Christian and to move into the world and move in their circles of influence with that identity. And we can expand the influence of Christianity, the church, of even just goodness into the world around us if we're willing to do that, to encourage people to tap into what makes them feel purpose and belonging and meaning, and then encourage them and equip them to go out into the world around themselves, where they have influence, and to do the same thing for other people.
Accurate as leaders in describing these problems. Let's not hype the problem by saying like this generation is losing their faith, right? Like that's not true. They're still a very spiritual generation. They're still very God-oriented. Even among the people we talked about earlier, the non-religious or the unaffiliated, the vast majority of them believe there's a God. Isn't that fascinating? It's not like we're in a post-spiritual age. We're in almost a post-church age. I want you to picture someone that you're here for. Someone in your youth group, maybe your own child.
What I heard today fit perfectly into what they tell me at home. One of the things they often say to me is, it's complicated, Dad. So I heard that today, and it helped me understand how to be more effective in helping them in their walk with Christ. For example, my oldest wants to be a firefighter, and he is. He graduates from the fire academy. But one of the things that he asked me is, Dad, can I still work for Jesus as a firefighter? And so today I've learned, and I'm going to share this with him, is that as a firefighter, he is the hands and feet of Christ. And so he's going to be commissioned for that special job that he's doing. My other one works with computers and is a junior in college. And so I look forward to sharing with him that he can be a designer, a graphic designer for Jesus. So his ministry will be his job and that which he's good at.
They're not safe just because they're coming to church every week. And I don't mean like safe because we can keep them insulated from the world. It's like there's real people who we're talking about, real Katy Perrys who are talented, you know, Carrie Underwoods and all the rest who are talented, attending your church today, who are going to be the influencers of the next generation. Don't lose them. We have to teach them two kinds of courage. The first courage is the courage to be pure, to be holy. This is the courage that they say, I'm not going to eat that diet. I'm not going to bow down before your idol. I'm not going to submit to this new legislation, even if it costs me or us our lives. The courage to be pure. The courage to be pure is the courage to live for God in a complex culture. The courage to be proximate is the courage to stand up to self-righteousness within the church. It's the courage to do things, to be salt and light, to actually go out and as our question was earlier, like to get outside the walls. This is what young exiles are asking us when they say, as we showed you in the handout, like, I want to find a way to follow Jesus that connects with the world that I live in.
So my name is Sarah and I'm from Minnesota. I'm very fortunate to be one of the speakers on the You Lost Me Live tour, and our experience here in Dallas was very unique. We had incredible hosts, very, very hospitable, welcomed us in with open arms, and we're very grateful to the younger generation church to allow us in. It's been a great experience. My aha moment of the day, or what made this a unique experience for me, was actually the speakers that Jim Henderson brought up on stage. I think they provided a lot of really unique perspective, and the comment that was made about being a self-promoter and how that leads to so much distrust, and how people have a tendency in the Christian community to put their own self-promotion in front of that of promoting Christ, which seems to that should be their first priority. It's just very interesting, and it's something that I think a lot of churches, especially the mega churches, could learn from, of how to be more relevant for young Christians by promoting Christ instead of themselves.
Christianity didn't give me things to do. Islam is a very active community, and I just felt that Christianity was so inactive for me.
People, I think, get into ministry, mainstream ministry, basically to promote themselves more than the actual interest in the core essentials of Christianity, the interest of God.
They're doing that.
Well, the Bible says in the last days they'll become lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God. I don't think people truly love God. They love the attention that they get from being a leader, being a preacher, and whatnot.
Find yourself in relationship with church now?
I don't feel like church is relevant to me. So I am done with church until further notice. That's the way I feel about it.
People's perception between Billy Graham and Paris Hilton is nearly equal for people between the ages of 20 and 35, it appeared. And that really stuck out to me, it really spoke to me, and I think that's the point where I kind of understood that we're losing. We are not doing what we're supposed to, and things are going terribly wrong for our church. I think that data proves to me that there's definitely some things that we need to do different. We need to definitely engage this next generation into helping them to understand who Jesus really is. That's not something that we have done well. And I think that if we did less self-promotion and did more of Jesus promotion, then we definitely could change those statistics for the better.
The world's best inventions in our pockets. In our pockets. The worst inventions in our pockets, like pornography. This is a generation that doesn't think you need to go to the bank to do banking. They've hardly been to a record store to buy records or music. What are records, right? Do they need to go to the church to experience church? They haven't had to buy magazines to get porn. We're having a friendly, frank conversation about why this generation is different. And here is the great opportunity. God's agent of grace. A huge digital revolution that we could talk about God's calling to these young people in digital Babylon. What's our responsibility as the church?
When David Kinnaman talked about 1 Chronicles 12:32, there's this tribe called Issachar, and these people knew their times and what the people of God should do. And that's basically the whole day was like this big message of knowing digital Babylon, I guess our times today. And it pushed me to go back home and minister to the young adults in my local church and local community in a very connected way. So I actually, not following anyone on Instagram, and the other day my youth pastor nudged me and was like, you should follow more people on Instagram. And I hesitated a little bit. But after today, like, there's this huge push. Why not use the tools of today? Why not use more media and be connected and be engaged?
Opportunities for you back at home. And let's start with this idea of relationships. Did you know that as we interviewed young people who were former Christians, we learned that only about 3 in 10 said that they had a close personal friend at the church during their high school years who wasn't a parent or a youth pastor. If you recognize that the difference between those who stick with their faith and those that don't, when you compare prodigals, nomads, even exiles, with those that have stayed in the church, the comparison in terms of their friendship with other adults is huge. It's like 2 to 3 times more likely that they were friends with an adult. We find a good friend of mine, Kara Powell, with Sticky Faith, a huge, huge impact. You have to cultivate meaningful relationships between generations. And if you're just hiring youth pastors to be the relational surface area with these young people, I don't think that's the right job description for a youth pastor. Right? A youth pastor at his or her best is going to help facilitate mentoring and adult relationships and all the rest. But you can't stay friends with all these young people as they go off to college. Like, that's not your job. I mean, you could have some people that you really enjoy hanging out with and you keep tabs on, and you ought to do something like that, but it's not your job just to be best friends with all these young people. And besides, this is a smart generation. They get it. Like, you're paid to do that. Case, different regime, but like, let's be honest, she is something like a sex slave, right, to the king. It's complicated. And Mordecai has to come alongside and say, you know, maybe you're famous for this very reason, for such a time as this. That's cultural discernment. And it leads me to my third idea, which is that we need reverse mentoring. And part of this, well, let me define it and I'll tell you what I mean by this. This means we need the next generation. The people of Israel needed Esther. For such a time as this, you have been given this platform, not Mordecai. Now, Mordecai goes on to say, if you don't do it, guess what? God's going to figure it out. He's not going to be surprised or, throw up his arms and give up on his people. He's still going to rescue his people. But we need exiles, and we need young people. All right, so reverse mentoring is really critical. The flip side of this that's also equally important is this idea of life modeling. We have to do a better job of helping our older generation understand that their lives matter and that people are paying attention. And we have to, it's not, I think mentoring, I use the term mentoring with reverse mentoring because that's an important idea that we want to allow the next generation to lead us in some ways. We can't say, listen, by the time you're 40, then you can be, on the board here at church, wait your turn. So this idea of being reverse mentored, I think, is important for older people to understand. It's also an important challenge. This generation wants to be challenged. So life modeling is really, really critical. It turns out that young Christians turn into the Christians that you are. They become who we are in the very best and the very worst of it. When it comes to living with difference, when it comes to learning from people who aren't the same religion as you. One of the things that's so awesome about this next generation is that they expect diversity and difference, and they love it. Young people are so hungry to understand what they're called to do in life. And vocational discipleship, do you know that only 16% of today's young Christians told us they know what how the Bible applies to their career or field of interest? 16%. That means that the vast majority of young Christians have no idea how the Bible applies to what they're called to do. That is just an absolute tragedy.
I think so many of them, that's why they were exiled, because they didn't see Jesus. They didn't see him for who he is and what he can be in their lives. And hopefully, walking away from this, we can make a big difference in giving them a sense of who Jesus is and that he exists. He's here. And he wants them very badly to come and not just be pew sitters, but be workers and ministers for him.
Do we love our traditions more than our children? Do we love our idea about the way Christianity and the church ought to function? Or do we love the future that Emily and Annika and Zach and your children could make of this thing called following Jesus? What an awesome opportunity we have.
I guess I hope that I would be a voice for an underrepresented experience. That when people think of me, they think of brave grace. Someone who's willing to sort of go to that place that is forsaken or forgotten. I want to be the person that says, that's important, and God sees that, and I see it.
Church has fallen into this consumer corporate model of putting on a show. Part of me doesn't want to go to church to be entertained. I want it to cost me something. I actually want it to cost me something. And I think we've fallen into this trap of sitting there and being entertained and receiving. You get your fix and then you go, and somehow that's insufficient to me.
When you present that the only reason someone could leave the church is because they were upset or discouraged, or someone was mean to them, or whatever it is, then you've completely talked past the person who left for intellectual reasons. Yeah, people like me, you're going to continue to lose us if there's no answers there.
I guess the thing that inspires me is when Jesus talks about the 99 sheep. I mean, Jesus is giving us a very different equation of how we measure success. Instead of looking at all who are, in the building, maybe we need to take a different look at the people that just didn't make it. And maybe there was something that we had some responsibility, some call to action that we were supposed to respond to that we never did. Christians are called to be truth tellers to one another, to say we have to look in the mirror and figure out whether we in fact are not living up to what Jesus asks us to be in the world.
Hi, I'm Dan Stearns. I really enjoyed this presentation today on You Lost Me, and it showed some of the challenges that this generation of young adults is really dealing with. Taking it back to our home church, one of the most important things I'm taking away from this is the importance of intergenerational mentoring, so that young adults who oftentimes are coming from more broken homes and families and lives have other adults in their lives who are listening to them, treating them as co-equals, and helping them walk with the Lord and prepare for His soon return.
This seminar was just an amazing thing. It really resonate with me because I'm 43 years old. When I was 18 years old, I left the church for 13 years for all the reasons what they covered. It just wasn't relevant, and my voice wasn't heard. And so a lot of these things that he's talking about, it's what our young people are really in need of. Furthermore, I think one of the key highlights it really pointed out is that oftentimes we have this stereotype of our young people that the reason why they left is because they don't like the church or different things, but really they're seeking acceptance, they're seeking to belong, but they can't find it. So this seminar has helped me to really point out some of these key things that we need to really deal with in our congregations.
Well, I felt like today was very beneficial. I have always had a heart for young people and for young adults, and it's just interesting how forming a relationship with them is so important, and then hearing them out, listening to them, and finding out what are their needs, what are some things we could be doing at the church to really cater to their needs. And many of them now are single, all the way into their 30s. So it's a whole new thought that we need to be catering to that younger generation. Very good.
I thought it was thought-provoking, a lot of data. Don't really know what to do with it yet, but I do hope that God will lead me and the leadership of the church to kind of get some consciousness regarding these issues that have been brought up. So it was time very well spent.
In some ways it's very discouraging to see the numbers. The encouraging thing is there's a lot of people trying to do an awful lot about it. And I think the key that I heard was we got to listen to what young adults are thinking. What are they talking about? How can we meet their needs so that they want to come back to church, they want to come back to Christ?
Today was amazing. It was uplifting, inspiring. It shows me that there's a lot of work to be done, but seeing all the people that came, it just shows me that I'm not alone, and I'm looking forward to move forward.
My name is David Kinnaman, and we just spent a great day here in Arlington talking about the next generation. I've worked on a couple of books, had the privilege of doing a lot of research among millennials. One book called Unchristian, and one book called You Lost Me, So We've Been Here. It's just a huge privilege to be able to share with some of the churches in this area, and frankly it was pretty cool. We had chaplain fly in from Washington, D.C., and we had people from Oklahoma and just all over come and visit with us today. And so we've been talking a lot about what does the church need to do to help really raise a new generation, and this is going to be really, really hard work, and it's been a privilege to be able to do this. I mean, one thing that surprises me every time we do this is that families, parents, even pastors will come and say, man, you just absolutely nailed the world that my 20-something kids are living in. And it's cool that research can do that. I'm not a 20-something, I'm 39, I get a chance to do this as a researcher, but it's cool that research can give us a window into what people who are different than us think and feel and believe. And so I think the church has incredible amounts of work ahead of it, but it's a privilege to be able to share this research and to try to inspire churches and leaders to think differently about this generation and our opportunities. One of the things that was super huge for us here in Arlington today was the hospitality of this church and being able to be a part of this Adventist community. You all were just incredible today. And I think you all have some unique challenges that we actually had the chance of speaking at probably 5 or 6 different Adventist-related events over the last 6 months. And I think I want to just give a special encouragement to you all that I think some of the things that you do have really special relevance to today's generation in terms of diet and nutrition, in terms of worshiping on a different day, some of the ways you think about the world, have a real chance of connecting with this next generation. But I think like any sort of Christian tradition, we also have these things that are going to keep us from really getting beyond ourselves and getting outside of what we've always done for the sake of always doing it, and realizing that there was a gospel reason, a biblical reason why we did this, a reason that we wanted to be more like Christ. And so my challenge is to recognize that we all have these traditions that mean something to us. And one of the questions that we ask our audience is, do we love our traditions more than our children? And I would just ask you to consider that within the Adventist sort of stream. Like, do you love your traditions more than your children? What's it worth to help them understand and to really bring their own calling to those traditions? And just to recognize, like, our world is really changing. A lot of the digital tools, a lot of our cultural realities are changing in such a way that it's harder than ever to be a Christian. It's harder than ever to be a Christ follower in a meaningful way. I truly believe that. I have 3 kids myself, and there's moments where I'm concerned and worried about the kind of world they're going to inherit. But I also have great confidence in what God's doing in their lives. And my wife and I pray a lot and want them to be, we pray a lot the older they get. With a 13-year-old and a 12-year-old girl, we pray even a lot about that. But we believe that God is going to use them on mission with Jesus in their generation. So we've been working hard to do that. And I would encourage you in your churches to consider ways that God might be asking you to help this generation in their own discipleship, in their own following of Jesus in a new way, in a new culture.